Now, Nyce came into the limelight. Was it the Real
Of Kangware.
House Helps of Kawangware, where she used, oh yes, Auntie Boss, where she used to be that child who she called Kyle. Kyle alikuwa anaitwa aje. She just used to do something different without the name Kyle, and it would take a life of its own. Anyway, that's how we know her. That's where we know her from, and she's rose to fame as an actress, as an entertainer, all-round comedian. We have seen the growth of Nyce. Now, people do say all that glitters is not gold, because sometimes you see people who are happy, especially very extroverted people, and you think these people are just okay. Because even before the story we're about to talk about today, she had talked about how she attempted suicide more than twice, more than 3 times. And she just had to, you know, remember that she has a child to take care of and repeat the mantra of, why should I suffer when the people who are causing me all this pain are just walking around scot-free? And that's just something you should always ask yourself when you're at the brink. Anyway, this time, currently she's very okay. She's expecting a child with her new partner, and they look happy, and we wish them all the best. However, she's recounting her experience with an abusive ex-husband who she got married to or started being involved with when she was all 19 years old. She was 19, he was 20 years old. And this is why we say, when we tell you, please leave that man alone when you're 19 years old, you think we don't know what we're talking about, but we've experienced these things. I had my child at 21, 22. I was turning 22. But back then, if you had told me, you know, don't do that, don't get yourself in this situation, I wouldn't have listened to you. I'd be like, girl, bye. You're in the way of my happiness, okay? So now she's recounting the experience of being in a relationship at all of 19 years old. Her partner was 20. And then at the age of 21, she got a baby. And this was the first time he ever laid a hand on her over the most dumb thing ever, because he was playing some reggaeton music and she just didn't like the vibe and she was hormonal and pregnant. But that's just making an excuse. She just said, listen, instead of us just listening to your music the whole day, how about you play your music for some time, and then I can, you know, switch to my genre after some time. And when she went on to switch and she took the remote, this man slapped her. That was the first time, and she forgave him. She went, did something dramatic, like going to the matatu station to pretend to be taking a mat. Anyway, all was forgiven. He asked for forgiveness. It was a spur of the moment thing. You know the excuses that happen, especially in a domestic, violent domestic situation. Anyway, he repented and they got back together. However, when the child was all of 9 months old, this man, for whatever reason, beat her black and blue. And at that time, they were living with a sister-in-law. He beat both of them black and blue. And she recounts having bruises for up to 8 months. So you can imagine how bad that beating was, up to 8 months. Still she stayed, because I do not know what happens, especially when you have a trauma bond. When you get involved with somebody when you're so young. And the thing is always, there's always a person for every season. When you're 19, there's a person for that 19-year-old season. When you're 20, there's a person for that 20-year-old season. And you should recognize that it's okay to move on. It's okay to leave your 19-year-old boyfriend and start focusing on you or date somebody else. You just don't have to carry this baggage just because you started from the bottom. You know, like that struggle story is always a crutch for most people. Anyway, after that, she still stayed. And then is it the what that broke the camel's back?
The straw.
Yes. Finally, for whatever reason, this man suspected her of seducing the landlord or being in a relationship with the landlord. And on that suspicion, he threw her down the staircase. And that was, you know, that's it, I'm leaving you. And then later on, she finds out that this man actually has wamama, amewekwa, he has sugar mamas, he's dating older women and so forth. Anytime she'd accuse him and ask, why are you talking to this girl in a relationship? Why are you doing... And people will accuse you of things they're doing, because why did he think you're seducing the landlord? Anyway, that was it. They finally broke up, but she still remembers that on her mother's funeral, This man showed up to the funeral with one of the mumamas.
Oh my
And
God.
he was consoling the mumama as she was crying. Why is the mumama emotional at my mother's funeral? And why are you even here? If you are coming to show genuine support, you would be it would be genuine support. As the father of my child, you've come to support or to offer your condolences. That's it. But why show up with your girlfriend, with your mumama? Anyway, the moral of the story is always leave. The first signs, the first red flag, even the first threat of I will beat you black and blue, that is just a test to see your reaction. If you laugh about it, he's like, it's easy. You know, you need to be very stern and very precise about boundaries. The first time something goes wrong, excuse yourself from the situation, because the more you stay, the bolder they get. And you do not want to die just because you are giving a man a second chance, a third chance, or a fourth chance. I hope you learned something from this.
I think for me, we've spoken a lot about trauma bonds, but we haven't really gotten into grooming. And I feel like grooming is where the problems begin. Okay, I'll explain grooming to you. Grooming is when a significantly older person, male or female, starts to develop an emotional connection, or, let me read the definition. Trust, emotional connection with a child. Builds a relationship, builds an emotional connection, or builds, any form of trust with a child for the purposes of manipulating them, exploiting them, or abusing them. When we're 19, when we're 18, when we're 16, there's something about us that feels like I'm mature, so I can date an older person. And in your mind, you don't realize what is happening to you. You get into this relationship, and every time you act your age, this person immediately is like, what are you doing? Why are you acting like a child? And immediately you recoil, and you go back to that suit that you have created for yourself, where you're a mature young person. Always remember, young girl who you're watching me right now, young boy who is watching right now, older people can actually be horrible. Simply because you feel like you're mature doesn't necessarily mean that you should be going out looking for older people to date. And this is something that I feel like a lot of young people need to understand, because we always do this, and then eventually we get so scarred, so traumatized. You're constantly wondering, what is wrong with me? Why am I depressed? Why am I sad? Why am I going through all of these things? Why do I feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders and I am 22? It's because when did you start being groomed? A long time ago. So you kind of just lost your childhood. Turi said it very clearly. There is a season for every age. When you're 19, date your fellow 19-year-olds. Just be young with the young people. Stop trying to chase all of this nonsense that you're chasing and seeing online. People being on choppers, people being in these fancy cars, people going to these expensive dates. Your time will come. And I actually think as women, especially as young women, if we forget trying to chase all these people with all this money, guess what? We start to figure out how to make our own money. That breeds a whole new generation of women who are independent, women who can take care of themselves, women who do not need to depend on another person. And therefore, what happens after that? Men can no longer take advantage of you and abuse you in ways like this. Why are you beating me simply because you take care of us? Why are you beating me simply because you take care of the finances, or you are the finder, the breadwinner of our family? It's because you feel like you have power over me. So if I have my own power, what is there for you to start trying to flex at me with? You understand what I mean? It's like small things, small changes that we can make as women, especially when we are younger, that can make our lives so much better in the future. Had I listened to the advice I was being given by the older women in my life, would I be in the same situations that I was in many countless times? Absolutely not. So I insist, understand, simply because you think you're mature doesn't mean you are. Simply because you feel like you can date an older person doesn't mean that they're not trying to groom you. Why are they not dating people their own age?
Exactly.
When a 40-year-old isn't dating another 40-year-old?
Because
the 40-year-old will not take that nonsense.
Are going to recognize this thing.
Yes.
And they're going to call you out.
Yes.
But you at 19,
you're so malleable. You're always like, okay, no, I'll do it because I love him. He loves me. And the things you're being given, chocolates, 2,000 shillings. What kind of nonsense?
Pizza and juice.
Pizza and juice.
As
Like,
in,
you
what's
know, what are you gaining out of this that you're saying, oh, he's older, he's treating me right? Taking you to a movie, how much is a movie? Mia tano. Ebu tukwe serious. Young girl, don't do it. Don't do it. Date your age, and if you can't, leave it alone. Figure out your life first. You will be so much better off. Here, I feel like we've gone too heavy on that conversation. Let's keep it moving to another conversation we need to have.